And just Amit, please take it forward.
Yeah.
And I will request that if you can quickly introduce yourself, and all of you can quickly introduce yourself before you start. I think that.
Thanks a lot, Anitaji. I'm Amit and I manage the clean power vertical at Shakti. Shakti, what we are trying to do is, we are basically the enabler of the ecosystem. We consider ourselves as the enabler of the ecosystem. What we are trying to do is basically enable the ecosystem for large scale transition of climate change solutions. And therefore, based on that, whatever is required, so for example, managing the clean power vertical, and for our theory of change, what we have got is like, we need to ensure that we have got this 500 gigawatt by 2030. And if we have to achieve that, whatever interventions we need to have on supply side, demand side, that is what we are kind of framing. So that's a brief about me. I'll request other panelists also to kind of introduce themselves, and then we'll get started with the session. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm Manoj Mahata from GIZ. GIZ, you know, the bilateral, and our main partner is MNRE. But other energy cluster projects are also partnering with BE and MOP and several others. So as my job, last 5-6 years, since 2018, we have started developing state energy action plans. So multi-sectoral, multi-fuel, multi-technology, what exactly and and celestial earth help us to do it. First time in India, after NITI Aayog did it at national level for West Bengal, and then subsequently we help 5 more states, total 6, to have a very long-term multi-sectoral plan. Now in new project we are trying to help or try to identify first what is state government's priority, political and development both, because there are around 70-80 very strategic long-term recommendations we have provided, and we don't want to leave them because then it will remain a very static plan and not a dynamic one. So we want to help them out further to take up whatever is their choice, as long as it is energy and energy related thing, and then to develop action plan and help them to implement those things. So this is the very broad area of work I am doing. But beyond this, or before joining GIZ, I was in development alternatives. Prior to that, I was in automobile sector, manufacturing unit. So I from development alternative days, I think no work, be it energy cluster or development work, no work can sustain in isolation. So that is the very basic and core principle of development, be it adaptation, mitigation, or energy and renewable energy, micro or DRE. So nothing can survive by its own. So it is an ecosystem approach, and we are also trying to do that thing. So center state connection, state within various department connection, department community, department market ecosystem. So this is how we are trying to develop and try out different upscale development model for state at state level. Because at national level there are many players doing good things, but things need to be implemented at state. So I am especially focusing at state or rather sub-state level. Thank you.
Thank you, Amit. So I'll introduce myself. My name is Ashish Jindal, and I represent Sustainable Energy for All. I'll take this. I represent Sustainable Energy for All. So Sustainable Energy for All is a body in the United Nations, and we work for the mission largely SDG 7 globally, and that largely translates into providing energy access to all by 2030, doubling the energy efficiency and tripling the renewable energy. So last to last year, I'll say, we are in 25. In 2023, we have basically supported Ministry of Power, Bureau of Energy Efficiency for the New Delhi Declaration, and there we able to get some voluntary text on doubling the energy efficiency, and then later on we have at COP and other global forum. Now, in that context, in doubling the energy efficiency, because it is going to be important when we talk about mitigation. So we are working in very close coordination with Bureau of Energy Efficiency right now on energy efficiency implementation in various states, and these are largely going to be the implementation. Second is on the demand flexibility, considering lot of, you can say, clean power or clean energy generation which is happening, but its demand, which is going to be also important, sync with the clean supply. So how this is going to be helpful? And one of the recent introduction of regulation by Maharashtra of mandating demand flexibility is a very important part in this. We are going to work in various states around it, and there are other programs. So that is my current work. We are working in other regions, South Asia and Southeast Asia, for this doubling the energy efficiency and tripling renewable energy. However, in my earlier capacity, I worked with Asian Development Bank, EESL for a long time, and there I had experience working on those large-scale programs linked to Ujala or Street Light National Program, Building Energy Efficiency Program. There we have done about 11,000 buildings pan India, and some international thing. But yeah, happy to be here, and thanks Anandaji for the invitation.
Thanks. Thanks. Thanks, Ashish and Manoj. So, honestly, when I received the invite for this event, I saw the title Pathways to Resilience and Climate Adaptation and Nature-Based Solutions. And then somewhere in the invitation, it was also there that we request you to join this and share your knowledge and wisdom. And that's where I started questioning myself, can I share any knowledge or wisdom in this area? Because I have been primarily working in the area of mitigation. But I thought this is a great opportunity for me to learn, given the credentials of the panel members, given the credentials of the audience in the room. And therefore, I'm thankful to Anandaji for this great opportunity. And particularly when we talk about the focus of the session and we talk about RE, I think the context has already been set, climate change, and we're talking about targets. And if we have to kind of meet these targets, what happens is, like, if we are considering mitigation as a lens, then somewhere we feel like we need to go for utility scale projects. RE is certainly a solution, but we need to go for utility scale projects because we'll be able to achieve megawatt in given time frame. But if we bring in this adaptation angle to this, and that is where I think the discussion will shift to some of the DRE based intervention, decentralized renewable energy solutions. And also if we see some of the recent developments in terms of the context and all, because whenever we talk about RE uptake, the challenges around DISCOMs are very, very important. But the good thing is that we have seen a few of the innovations in terms of the business models. For example, things around solarization of agriculture feeders. Some of these things which align very well with the DISCOMs' financial interest, they are gaining a lot of traction. And therefore, in a nutshell, I would say DRE is getting a lot of traction. And whenever we talk about any particular technology, it's a question of three things. One is opportunity. There is a clear opportunity. We talk about PM Surya Ghar or rooftop for that matter. And if we try to calculate some of the numbers, we are talking about somewhere close to 30-40 gigawatts. Same is the story with PM Kusum, 35 to 40 gigawatts. So clear opportunity in terms of 80 gigawatts. Intent is already there. That's the reason we have got this scheme, whether it is rooftop or PM Kusum. The question is, how do we tap this opportunity? And that's where we are kind of having a lot of challenges. So what we are going to do is, in this session, we are going to discuss some of these challenges around RE uptake. But in terms of format, I wanted to keep it flexible. Although I've got few questions, I'll request my panelists to answer these questions. But we have got some of the visionary leaders in the room. So I request all of you, if you have any questions, feel free to ask your question. Or if anyone would like to kind of contribute to the discussion, we'll be happy to have, because this is a small gathering, but we would like to have a good discussion and good understanding around that. So that's the format. Maybe I'll start with Manoj ji. Given his background, not only in this current role, but in the past, he has worked with some of the organizations who are known for advancing work in the area of DRE. So how do you see this role of DRE, particularly when we bring in the adaptation angle to this? If you can kind of talk about some of the specific examples, then that would be great. Over to you.
Okay.
So starting from the state energy planning days, I make a point that energy doesn't mean only electricity. So to me, energy means all form of energy and conversion of energy using all possible known technologies. So from that perspective, I think DRE, the advantage of DRE, the way we are thinking, it is all form of machineries using some or the other energy for all productive purpose in all sectors. Particularly, my intention is to think those areas or those productive areas or economic areas where million and million people are working. It be fishery, agriculture, local value addition, those kind of things. So from that perspective, I think it is not only the technology which converting natural resource into electricity and feeding into grid. I am also thinking biomass, fluvial economy like small hydro, run of the river kind of things, because these resources are actually owned by the local people, by masses. It will be difficult for an industry to come up and collect that resource, the cost will be enormous. And then I am also thinking once resources are jointly managed by the locals, communities, then it should be again used for local productive purposes. For example, now electric vehicle and everything is coming, even in hilly area, just for an example. Can a small hydro project, 200, 300, 400 kilowatt kind of thing, with local technology expertise having to maintain it, generating electricity, using it 24/7, barring 1 or 2 months on specific areas, and using it for all purposes. In hilly area, you understand heating, not cooling, heating demand is growing. Then domestic need, e-mobility, irrigation in different nooks and corners, and we are also not taking undue advantage of the resource like big dams. So these are the type of project in terms of resilience based model we should adopt. And like solar pump, we are also now working or helping MNRE to develop the innovative solar application in the name of floating solar, agro PV. So agro PV is actually a good, I'll say, even they are grid connected, but I will consider them as a decentralized, because you have to have farmer as your stakeholder, and you are generating electricity for all agricultural purposes plus local value addition, and the same area can be used as a water harvesting unit. So those kind of a combined development project where RE generation potential is increasing and local consumption to boost local economy is what I am seeing as a context of background.
Thanks a lot, Manoj. I think from our discussion, you are highlighted 2 or 3 important points. One around this kind of demarcation between electricity and energy. Certainly, when we talk about DRE, it has to be like that only. The second point around this decentralized generation is one part of it. We have got a lot of focus around decentralized generation, but I feel like we also need to work around decentralized consumption, and so we need to kind of balance out these 2 things. And then the third point, I think you mentioned around when you're talking about agri PV, and this is again one thing where we have seen a lot of changes in the ecosystem. Earlier we were talking about isolated grids, right? So when we used to talk about DRE, it was everyone was thinking like something not connected to grid. But in today's context, I mean, if we are saying like anything which is not connected to grid, that may not be a fair thing to make, because I mean we have got grid infrastructure sitting in every village. So we'll have to basically look for those innovations. So Ashish, I'll come to you, and as Manoj highlighted, like we're talking about DRE, there are schemes, whether it is PM Kusum or rooftop or solar pumping for that matter. He also highlighted a point around using DRE for livelihood applications in order to bring in more resiliency into the system. The thing is that the good part is that we have been able to see some success around this. And you take any example, you will find some good example on pumping on rooftops. But on the other side, in terms of challenges, we have not been able to scale up, despite some of the schemes or other things as well. So if you can kind of point some of the key challenges because of which we have not been able to kind of achieve our targets, or we are not able to take this opportunity. And if you can also highlight a potential way forward, what could be the way forward solution?
Sure.
That would be great.
Sure, thanks. So before getting into these two important questions, I would like to share my thoughts on the lens of adaptation on the DRE. I think what is also important is considering the way the heat waves or floods or the way the natural calamities are happening. We have also need to think how DRE, because DRE is a very important component when we think all this happen. And in past 10-20 years, this is like happened almost X times what has happened before, right? So when we think about then how the planning could lead towards those solutions is also important, right? For example, I was reading Chennai floods in 2015 and 2012 also, and almost many hours we don't have supply. We have issues in our healthcare system. We have issues related to sustenance. So I think how that could also be considered as an important thing. And considering our energy security angle, I think this is also where I think DRE solutions are important. Now coming back to the challenges, I would like to share my personal experience around Pradhan Mantri Solar Ghar Yojana. So I am also a beneficiary, I will say. And basically, although the program is good, but since it is in initial stage, there are few challenges which I can foresee could be resolved. And I think with the discussion and with the discussion whether we are doing with MNRE or others, I think they are trying to resolve. But I think it's important to highlight. So the first thing which is very important, although we have a complete portal for the Pradhan Mantri thing as a beneficiary, we can track things. But when we talked from DISCOM to the beneficiary to the installation, it's a very black box. And what happened is, I got approved for my one of the residents in Ghaziabad, where my parents live, a 2 kilowatt thing in February 24. But the delay happened, like for example, first delay happened because of the selection of vendor. There's a lot of issues around it because DISCOM has their own, you can say, own preference, and then you will have your own preference, but you basically get into the dark. How to select, what to select. This is number one. Number two, when you select that, they basically help you. Then there is a lot of negotiation start. Used to happen, a lot of those challenges happen. But when everything will happen, let's say I say it takes 3 months from February to May, June, that okay, our project was approved. Then it takes a lot of time in basically installation is very fast. Vendor will give you as soon you do the payment. But when it comes about the inspection, the net metering, I think it takes almost another 6 months for me, because at my location, I think what has happened is they said net meter is not available. If net meter came after 3 months, we don't have the net meter which is basically tested in the lab. It is not there. So another we have to wait. So this cycle has taken 6 months, and then lot of issues who will basically come and install it once it is available, because you have to keep going every week. So my parent who is old, my father used to go, and so then also the vendor used to take a lot of, you can say, that it is not in a scope. So there's a black thing, and if something could work around it which could help, because then you also start discussing with your neighbors and that how your experience was. Because I remember we have a lot of MSMEs around us, and they asked us for the residential purpose that can we go and do this, but they want to first know our experience. But since our experience was almost an year, right, they were little like hesitant. So that is the one thing, and the process overall is important. Second thing is, now once it is installed, now I think I just a week back I received the subsidy also. But now the issue is I want to see whether that is generating or not. Now it is taking almost 3 weeks that a vendor should go to the site and give me confidence that it is happening, because there are two things. Vendor will say it will reflect in your electricity bill, and electricity bill is a very question mark thing that it will. The DISCOM will say we have to wait for the correction and all those things. So I think all this experience of hassle-free could be better, which could actually help this program, because I could say the data of UP, although I think about 15 lakh sanctions were happened, but the installations are few, very few. And that's the reason, and the administration, even district magistrate and other key officials at the district level are taking cognizance of that. But still, because DISCOM, how we could support DISCOM to basically do that is a key thing. Second thing is, after, for example, I'm still having this question start happening in my mind. If this basically will be installed, if something will happen, how will vendor will basically is going to resolve the problem or not? So after sales service is a big, again, a dark thing. So I think these are very basic and very key things which as a user I can say, but there are n number of other things which as a practitioner, as an expert I can say, in terms of skilled labor, in terms of ecosystem, in terms of knowing which technology is better, right? I think there are n number of ways, but I think as a user I would like to share what I've experienced.
Thanks a lot, Ashish, for sharing that experience. So I agree with you in terms of some of the challenges. However, one thing I wanted to kind of emphasize here is that ministry is working on some of these challenges, because we were involved in a few of the studies where the idea was to kind of identify some of the on-ground challenges, and these were suggested. And I would say well-established system tracking of some of these things. For example, your point around vendor thing, so the discussion around vendor rating, so that they don't need to kind of bother. Even your point around how much it is generating, the idea is now to kind of capture that data, and G is part of those discussions. So the idea is if we can kind of gather that data, and maybe some sort of feedback mechanism we can create where you're getting a message saying that your generation is going down, maybe you need to kind of clean it or something like that. That would work. So the discussions are going on. I would say initial challenges related to some of the process deficiencies, but things are hopefully will be back on track. So taking the discussion forward, in between, if there are any pressing questions.
I have one thing to intervene here, because this is very, what Amit has said, very close to our work that we are doing with. So, you mentioned that there is a hesitance from the DISCOM side to even to see that whether that to allow that net metering to happen. So, is there any possibility to investigate that? What is the reason why DISCOMs are not coming forward? Because if there is a business interest from the DISCOM side, I don't think anyone will wait even a day. They will immediately come and knock the door. But why there is a delay?
So maybe we'll park that question. Rakesh, you wanted to kind of say, and then we'll.
Actually, I wanted to add to what Ashish mentioned. I also tried this under this scheme only, and not only for myself, but also for there was another scheme of for RWAs, and there are challenges. Challenges related to vendors. They are not responding. DISCOMs not responding, or net metering issues could be there. But what I perceive that there is a basic lack of understanding both from consumer side and also from vendor side. Solar, especially rooftop solar, is such an easy kind of sector to venture in that anybody, I'm saying anybody who had some bit of knowledge or background in electricity sector, they have got into this. I'm sharing with you my personal experience. I have one house somewhere and I'm living somewhere else. Okay, I wanted to use that virtual net metering thing. I have drafted the policy. I know, yes, this is existing and you can avail this. You can install your net metering system somewhere else and you can avail the benefit elsewhere, provided the consumers are the same, falling under the same DISCOM jurisdiction. All these I'm aware of. But these vendors, they were sounding as if they have heard it for the first time. They were not aware what is called virtual net metering, and if yes, they have heard it somewhere, how to execute it, they don't know. Even the DISCOM officials at the ground level, they are not aware. I'm not talking about the GMs and others, but the ground level who are actually operating this, they are Shakti as a foundation, they are unique to target, and the capacity building is one thing. And then something related to DRE, because this is very close to my heart, this subject I have worked again with Shakti for a very long time. But now I'll suggest that we have to come out of this DRE, not come out of DRE, but reshape it in a different way. DRE should be shaped like DERMS, which is like Distributed Energy Resource Management System. Gone are the days where we were struggling with the electricity access. Access is no more an issue. We are now probably saying that, okay, 99.9% or whatever percentage households are already electrified. So DRE from access perspective is no more of use. Now is the era of EV. I mean, EV has started creeping in. China, 60% of all the cars are EV. India is marching ahead. I mean, you are seeing lots of development happening. The EV car manufacturers, they have declared that we don't need subsidy. I mean, once this FEMA scheme gets over, we don't need subsidy, and the consumers also, mostly they don't need subsidy. That means, what I'm trying to say, the nature of DRE is going to change. There will be more of EVs, there will be more of what he said, Chennai kind of disaster that has happened, how to take care of that. So your DRE has to take shape of DERMS, wherein you are supposed to have load of EV, load of a rooftop. You're not only communicating one way, that you're drawing electricity from DISCOM. I mean, every consumer will become a prosumer. I'll consume something, I'll produce something, I'll feed back to the grid. The EV will draw electricity from grid. Sometimes, say I'm going on a holiday, I'm not driving my EV car, so what will happen to my charged battery? Battery works better when it gets charged and discharged frequently. This is how the cycle should be. So if my battery is charged, I'm not able to discharge, what will happen? So your grid has to act in that manner, truly in a smart manner, that okay, it's able to charge the EV, and also on the other hand, it should also draw power from EV. So this is why DERMS is very important, and it's pertinent at this stage that we need to have some study, some I'll say pilots on DERMS, and where DRE will play a very important role. Because why DRE? Because the power from this will largely come from renewable energy. So this is that DRE is not losing its importance, but the shape has to change, the nature has to change.
Thanks a lot, Rakesh. I request my panelists if they have to respond to these 2 points, brief response so that.
Amit, can I add to this, if possible, before the panelists?
Very much similar to that.
It's very much similar. Actually, you might relate to that what we have worked before with Shakti.
We will come to that.
No, I was just saying that on the local energy market, what you're saying, apart from the strengthening of the grid with the DERMS, with the DRE and the EV that you have mentioned, this local energy market needs to be established, and the framework or the regulations pertaining to that, how the local energy market at the distribution level, because currently the market is at the transmission level, how that accumulative energy that we can accumulate, or we can at the same time we can with the DRE and EV, but the energy is there, the total energy, the cumulative energy that can be transferred, or the same with the centralized market or centralized grid that can help the distribution utilities as a separate revenue generation, as well as maintaining the load balance and load generation balance and all. So that's why I'm adding that, so that they can combine.
Thanks a lot. If you would like to give quick response
To Anita's question, yes. So it is not DISCOM is willing to give or not give. The situation in which DISCOMs are working in different states, not only in state, across state in different cities, different lines, the line loading are totally different. So it is, and they are mandated. The moment they will give you connection, they are mandated to take back and to supply. So while taking back, what is the time of the day where they will take back from you, and what they will do with that? State like West Bengal, non-industrial state, if the cumulative energy coming from these small systems the accumulated energy is too high for them to very difficult to find are being added by different people, and then the solutions, more better and efficient solutions are coming. For example, Karnataka is now, I think they have now released peer-to-peer trading. So in a RWA kind of situation where people will sell and buy among themselves, and DISCOM will play slightly lesser role. Probably micro DISCOM can come up. So those kind of possibilities and challenges are upcoming. So it is just a starting of the initiative. Rooftop is still better. Think of a decentralized solar pump. How you can connect all those pumps in the middle of some or the other corner of the field. It is even challenging. So probably more and more technology, business and ecosystemic solutions are to become. And how social systems are working. For example, the trained local entrepreneur can play the role of cleaning, maintaining, data recording to showcase, okay, this vendor is better than this vendor from post after sales service perspective, and giving more operational benefit, not only one-time cash benefit. So those ecosystems are evolving. Only thing is how we can play a catalytic role to involve that ecosystem in a faster and more safer and futuristic.
Thank you, Manoj. Ashish.
I have just hello.
No, I think that. No.
Okay, sorry. So as a solution, what I was thinking, considering all this learning, is I think since at a state level we know that these number of connections are passed, I think the supply of the equipment is also, we have to ensure that these are being passed to the vendors. Because what is happening is, or maybe DISCOM, because there is some black box around it, because they said net meters are not available or testing facilities are not available. So I don't know whether that is considered while basically planning a mission, for example, in a state, if we want to do, let's say 15 lakh installation by this date. So how at a district level, or how those things, because that sort of coordination is a very important in terms of equipment supply and you can say monitoring also, because I think there in the system it is always a ad hocism which may not be visible, right? And there can be other things also.
So thanks a lot, Ashish and Manoj. I just wanted to add to some of the thinking around this. I feel, Rakesh ji, to your point around capacity building and awareness, completely agree with you. Just one point that when we are talking about implementation of such a big scheme, the one expectation I have is that we need to have a holistic approach around this. And what I mean by that is we need to have the complete ecosystem aligned with that. So for example, if people are not aware of PM SEforALL scheme or subsidy, then you try to have a program dedicated interventions for creating awareness. But the moment you are able to create awareness, suddenly the other person will go for rooftop, they will apply, and that is where you need to also capacitate some of the vendors and DISCOM authorities, so that in the process we are able to kind of address the complete thing around this, and then working with different agencies. So that holistic approach has to come. And the good thing is that again, some of it is already, it has already started happening on PM SEforALL with some of the focused efforts around certain cities. So you'll see some of the changes around this. Your point around Anindaji, it's a very valid point. I would say $1 million question, DISCOMs, this thing. But the way I see this question is, I mean, if I have to kind of frame this, the way I see is the first question. Are they willing to buy RE? First question. And that indicates whether we need to talk about RPOs or FDRE matching their demand and all. So first question, are they willing to buy? Even if they are willing to buy, are they in a position to buy? And when I say position, it's basically their financial condition, because that is again a big challenge. Let's say if we are able to deal with that also, and they are in a position also, do they have the infrastructure to kind of consume this kind of thing? And when I talk about infrastructure, in India, I feel we have done a good job when it comes to transmission. But when it comes to distribution, I think we need to have a lot of intervention, and particularly some of these DREs, they are going to basically have interface with the distribution network. So the question is, how do we kind of deal with these things? And then the fourth challenge, even if we have infrastructure in place, the kind of scale we are saying, what kind of innovations we need to have in the ecosystem? And innovation could be in the form of technology. Anitaji, you mentioned in the previous panel that we need to have AI-based interventions. Innovations could be in the form of business model as well. We need to come up with some new innovative models where we are able to kind of scale. And some of the technological interventions, Rakesh, you also highlighted around DER. We also had discussions around LEM kind of thing. So then I think we can take it to that level. So these 4 steps. And if I have to be specific to your question, I think it's the business model, right? The sense around like high-paying consumer going out of their network. So what kind of strategies we can deal with, and probably the success of this solarization of agriculture feeder is indicating that we need to kind of target those customers. So those are the points, but taking it from there, Ashish, I wanted to come to you, and because you mentioned something around demand flexibility, and one of the things around DISCOM is matching their what is that they need. We know RE is intermittent in nature, so either we need to have storage in support of that, or we need to have some sort of mechanisms in terms of demand flexibility. That is also one of the area I feel that in this whole story of energy transition, everyone is playing their role, DISCOM, government. This is also one opportunity where consumer can kind of make some of the contribution. So if you can throw some light around demand flexibility.
Sure. Thanks for this question, and I think there are 4-5 key interventions which we are currently foreseeing in the demand flexibility space. And the brilliant one, I must say, based on the experience from the Maharashtra, Delhi, Haryana, where we are working along with Assam, is the water pumping. So what is happening is currently the water pumping, because and why we are I'm talking about water pumping, and there are other examples like centralized cooling, largely to the centralized building, EV charges, largely for the public buses. Why I'm talking? Because doing the intervention at the individual customer level is going to be challenged, but at an institutional level, considering the institutions, like for example we were discussing Delhi Jal Board, right, that how your challenges around pricing, for example currently you have around 300 crore of bills, it could be reduced around 200 CR with the demand flexibility approach. And along with us, when we had DRPS and BYPS, they were also acknowledging that the peak time where basically you are switching on your system is actually hampering us to buy and to basically invest in the infrastructure. So I think this is where pan-India water pumping system, especially with the municipalities and the likes of Delhi Jal Board, could be one thing. Second is the public infrastructure for EV and largely for buses. As we are seeing, our country has a very important and a very high number of penetration for e-buses. And Gadkari ji has said sometime around 5 lakh buses, starting with 50,000 buses. And if we see Delhi only, right, if we could control and so what is happening currently is on the wet lease model or a dry lease model, the OEMs are basically investing into the electric buses, and they are basically getting payment from the state transmission, state undertaking, STUs. Now, if some sort of a model could be created where these can actually help electrical utilities, because ultimately the OEMs of like the likes of Tata Motors, JBM have to pay for the asset, right, under their 5-year, 10-year model. If something could be done, they could also save, and this could also help utilities. Third thing is on the thermal storage. So on thermal storage, we have seen this summer again is coming. Again, there is a prediction that this is going to be more scarier than 2024, which was among in the last decade, not decade, even in the 100 years, it was the hottest. So if this is happening, why can't we have certain programs on like like thermal storage where we have certain ice during the non-peak hours and that we can club with a cleaner source of energy. For example, we have this 500 gigawatt. If around 180 gigawatt is coming from solar, and we know this is going to be during the solar hours, how we can link it to the thermal storage or ice making, and then during the peak hours, maybe during the 7 to 9 or something, we can melt it to basically support the system. So there are other examples also, but I think these are the few examples where we basically would like to do, and we are seeing a potential in this post state to that 4 to 5 gigawatt. And Maharashtra, as I was discussing, I don't know whether I discussed or not, but they are given a target for this 2025 to all the 4 DISCOMs operating as a distribution licensee of giving 1.5% of their total peak demand in this 2025. So which is going to be around 400-500 megawatt of demand flexibility. So a lot of those programs will come, and this is going to be increase in coming years from 1.5% to 2% to 2.5%, and other states are also following this thing. So that a lot of this thing will actually give maybe a signal in terms of flexibility of demand. Okay. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Ashish, for giving that example around this. I think in the interest of time, what I wanted to do was again open the discussion for questions from audience. If you have any questions around this whole discussion around RE uptake and DISCOMs, anything, or any suggestions you would like to make. Good. So if there are no questions, I feel 2 or 3. Maybe I request my panelists if they would like to make any quick remark of this before I kind of formalize it.
One remark, I don't know in which context, but one remark, the changing role of DISCOM. I think they are barring 1 or 2 super efficient, future looking kind of DISCOM. Most of them are totally unaware of the fact that how much additional load is coming to them and what is their infrastructure position. So even from today's date, if they start collecting data, reaching out existing and few immediate future potential clients, probably they have to think differently. AI/ML role is on that account is really critical, because they need to understand the characteristic of each and every component across the infrastructure, behavior, and now smart meter, probably 5% smartness of that meter was not being used by this one. So probably data-driven response, risk management, planning process will start once they will start understanding and decoding and collecting the missing data, particularly the number of EVs that's coming. We are also thinking of promoting e-cooking. Nobody is ready so far. So if e-cooking comes into the picture, then I don't know how DISCOM will manage that thing. And that is also an area for revenue, additional revenue collection and daytime peak management kind of things. So battery, V2X kind of situation. So many more future solutions will come out of data collection, data analysis, and DISCOMs should invest more time and effort towards that.
So thanks a lot, Manoj, for bringing in that perspective. Completely agree with you. In fact, yesterday and day before yesterday, I was at IIT Bombay, and there was a workshop on RE integration challenges. We had representation from SLDCs, DISCOMs. The good thing was one of the major area which was highlighted, like a pain point for them, was this forecasting. So they need to kind of come up with models, and they were talking about hardcore numbers, the error around forecasting. And the good thing is that they have been able to find some solutions also. So AI, ML, every kind of state authority, they are working with local IITs or academic institutions in figuring out some of those solutions. So I completely agree. Road has to shift both in terms of business model, in terms of technological development, and some of these things are happening. Ashish, you wanted to add any final remark?
Yeah, so I just want to, I don't know. Yeah, I just want to share one interesting thing, maybe you are aware. So, as we have seen in India, what happened in financial sector is UPI, right? So, I think Nandan Nilikanji, if you're here, is working on UEI, and we had chance to like interact around the demand flexibility. So, UEI is going to be a critical thing around like how charge operators and consumers are going to behave. So so it is out of context, but in consideration to this, I think a lot of work, maybe future transition could happen around UEI if something like that happens. So just a thought around it. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Ashish. And in terms of the overall discussion, if I have to kind of summarize 2 or 3 key findings. One, this whole discussion around climate adaptation. I strongly believe, and that was also the same opinion from the panel, that DRE is a kind of very powerful tool when we talk about adaptation, whether it is a question of providing reliable electricity or improving the socio-economic conditions of the people who are going to get affected from the climate change. That's one piece. Based on some of the discussions, what we also felt was we need to have a holistic approach around scaling up some of these solutions. DISCOM, yes, one of the challenge, but with some of the innovations around business models and technological innovations, certainly that can be dealt with. Might take some time, but we have already started seeing some of the successful case studies, so that can be done. So these are the 3, and then obviously the innovation, whether it is AI or DSO kind of thing or DER kind of thing, it will eventually kind of come into picture, and if we have to achieve not only 500 gigawatt but net zero kind of target, certainly this they'll have a role to play. So on that positive note, I would like to thank my panelists for their insights on this. I would like to thank all of you for your patientful listening and also contributing to this. Thank you.
Thank you.